I left in the dead of night, performing a ritual for safe passage. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. The devil lives in New Orleans. It was a warning, a fear passed down through generations, but I had always wondered, what does she mean? What lay beyond the beaded mask, neon lights, and whispered superstitions? New Orleans had called me for years, but not the version dressed for tourists. I had my itinerary planned, a dive into the mystical, the occult, the haunted, but when I arrived, the city had its own story to tell. All by myself. We have made it down here. I have got the hustle. I use ChatGPT to try to create my itinerary to make it here in 11 hours because that's exactly how long I have to hit all of the spots that I really want you all to see and experience with me.
This would be the Treme area. This is my old neighborhood.
Treme
area, the oldest black neighborhood in America.
Wow. Look at the weather coming down here. It was supposed to rain and storm and everything else, but it looks like the weather is holding out, man. I was praying before coming down here. So the original plan was to go, as you could see, Café du Mont, but my Uber driver was so awesome. He told me that I should go and get some beignets from Loretta's. It's a black-owned little praline shop that has been around for a long time. And unfortunately, he told me Loretta had passed not too long ago, but her kids are keeping it going.
Thank you.
Y'all, so just went over here and got my family something to try. And I'm gonna put that in my bag here in a second. And I gotta take my vitamins and medicines, but I have never tried a beignet before. And I was just thinking, like, pastries are nice, but like I want food. That's pretty good. It's not like overly sweet, and it's fresh and warm. It's got like this crispy exterior, but this really soft, pillowy inside. And the powdered sugar adds just enough sweetness to it. I would definitely eat these again, like as a light dessert. I could be wrong, but it tastes like this can be flexible. Like it can be sweet, but it also could be savory. It reminds me of a funnel cake, and hopefully I don't offend nobody saying that, but that's what it reminds me of, because that's the only thing I have to compare it to. I began my journey where most visitors do, wandering through the French Quarter, where mysticism is neatly packaged and sold. I can't fault the shop owners, because after all, tourists come seeking a quick thrill. The places I chose to visit, however, were ones I felt particularly drawn to, like Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo, part shrine, part shop, and a magnet for curious visitors. Unfortunately, I was not able to film inside of the store. There is an altar dedicated to Marie Laveau, and where people have left, offerings and such. boutique de vampire, dripped with Gothic charm. One thing that I'm noticing is that I had handpicked a few shops to go to, but now that I'm down here, there's so many shops that have the same ambiance, commercialism, type thing. And unfortunately, because of that, I think I am going to stay away from going any more shops. Because what I'm finding is that it's a waste of time. I mean, as you know, I own House of Royal Botanica, if you could see it amongst all my stuff. And I mean, I know what they have. I know what's in there. So if you ever come down to New Orleans, I would suggest just, go in there and look. But once you see one, you've seen them all. And yes, of course, St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, the final resting place of Marie Laveau. The air was thick with stories, yet many felt rehearsed, curated more for entertainment than for truth. And so I sought to seek more. Let's rewind a bit. The real transformation began with my Uber driver, a native of New Orleans who, unprompted, began telling me about the Black history of the city, the side tourists don't come for. He pointed out streets, landmarks, names I hadn't planned to explore. My carefully curated itinerary crumbled beneath the weight of something far more profound. So I listened and I followed. I walked through Treme, the oldest African-American neighborhood in the country, a cradle of Black resilience and culture. It was here that free people of color built lives, businesses, and legacies despite the world trying to erase them. I had come to New Orleans expecting to see magic, but I didn't expect to feel it in the streets beneath my feet. Treme was different. It didn't glitter like the French Quarter, nor did it try to sell itself to tourists. It breathed, it pulsed, it carried the weight of people who refused to be erased. The story of Treme is not written in guidebooks, nor is it confined to museum walls. It lives in the very ground, in the cracked sidewalks where feet have marched for freedom, in the air that hums with the echoes of brass bands that refuse to be silenced. It is the oldest Black neighborhood in America, not because history was kind to it, but because the people here would not let it go. In the late 1700s, when most of America still denied Black people even the right to exist freely, Treme's free people of color, les gens de couleur libres, bought their own land in a world where ownership meant power. They carved out a sanctuary. They built homes. They played music. They wrote poetry. They prayed. They rebelled in ways both loud and quiet. And they danced. At St. Augustine's Catholic Church, I stood before the tomb of the unknown slave. Heavy chains dripped over a cross, a silent memorial to the nameless, faceless souls who built this city with their labor and their suffering. This was no tourist attraction. It was a wound, a testament, a demand to be remembered. Stumbled upon a festival, a jazz festival. So let's see. Congo Square, where both free and enslaved people, forbidden from expressing their humanity anywhere else, gathered on Sundays to drum, to chant, and to remember. Where rhythms older than America itself pounded into the earth, refusing to be forgotten. Where jazz was born, not in the clubs, not in the recording studios, but in the hands of those who had lost everything but their music. The people of Treme did more than survive. They created. They turned struggle into sound, oppression into art. Their music would become jazz, their traditions would become legend, their resistance would shape history. And as I stood there, letting the pulse of this place move through me, I realized this wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a testament, a reminder that no matter how many times history tried to bury them, the people of Treme never stopped rising, and neither would I. As I stepped out of Congo Square, the echoes of the drums still vibrated in my chest. The energy here was undeniable, a place where history refused to be forgotten, where spirit and rhythm intertwined, where defiance took the form of dance and song. But the resilience of the enslaved and the free people of color in New Orleans didn't just survive in music. It lived in their faith, in the spiritual practices they carried from West Africa, and in the way they wove those traditions into a new world that sought to strip them of everything. That journey, the survival of African spirituality in the face of oppression, led me to my next stop, the New Orleans Historic Voodoo Museum. Founded in 1972 by Charles Massicat Gandolfo, a local artist and voodoo enthusiast, the museum was never meant to be just another tourist attraction. It was a preservation of misunderstood and misrepresented tradition, an attempt to separate myth from reality and honor the practitioners who kept voodoo alive in New Orleans despite centuries of demonization. Inside, altars draped in offerings, skull and candles lined up in quiet reverence, relics of a faith that is still practiced today. Here, I could trace the journey of voodoo from its West African roots through the trauma of slavery and into the hands of New Orleans' most powerful spiritual figures, notably Marie Laveau. New Orleans was never about curses and Hollywood horror. It was about community, healing, and protection. It was a force of resilience, much like the people who carried it through generations. And standing there, among the relics and the stories, I realized this was more than history, it was legacy.